These rock and roll stars lit up the world with faces full of fire, fury, and flaws. 20. Rock and roll stars who destroyed their looks with plastic surgery. Regrets is not just about surgeries. It's about icons who carved away the chaos that made them real and lost something deeper than age. Let's expose how their faces changed so much. Even their fans couldn't recognize them anymore. 1. Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger never admitted to plastic surgery, but his face? It told a different story. The man who used to swagger across the stage like time didn't exist started looking too smooth for someone who had lived that hard. Wrinkles faded, jawline tightened, neck locked tighter than a man in his 80s should ever manage without help. People noticed. They compared photos. They whispered. Mick was supposed to be the eternal rebel, the guy who aged loud, wild, free. But in some pictures, his face looked stretched, like it was trying to smile through cling film. It didn't move the same. His mouth still sang, but the energy didn't reach his eyes. He never confirmed anything. Never denied it either. Just kept dancing, kept leaping. And people kept watching, wondering how much of what they saw was real. The legend stayed. But something about the image? It shifted. The rawness got polished. The edge got dulled. Fans still cheered, still called him a god. But under the lights, Jagger didn't look like the Jagger from before. He looked like someone trying to hold on to the ghost of himself. Aging isn't the enemy, but hiding from it. That's when you start to lose. Whatever he did, it didn't erase his greatness, but it added a strange silence to his story. One that echoed behind every sharp cheekbone and every unnaturally tight smile. He didn't fade. He just got blurred. 2. Keith Richards. Keith Richards was supposed to be the guy who never changed. The man who outlived trends, rules, even death itself. He wore his years like medals. Lined face, weathered skin, a walking billboard for hard living. But then his face started getting smoother. Just a little. Then a little more. No one expected it. Of all people, Keith, the one who laughed in the face of aging? But something happened. His neck tightened, his jaw sharpened. The eyes didn't droop quite like before. People started whispering. Did he? Could he? But there were no answers. Just the photos. Just the rumors. Keith never said a word. Just kept strumming. Keep showing up. But the man whose face used to tell 1,000 dirty, glorious stories suddenly looked like he was editing the book, cleaning up the pages. And no one asked him to. Maybe it was pressure, maybe vanity, maybe just a small touch-up that turned into something bigger. Whatever it was, it changed the way people looked at him. The rebel who never bent now looked like he might have blinked. He still had the swagger, still had the riffs, but that raw, craggy face, it started to smooth over, started to go quiet. And in rock, sometimes silence is the loudest thing you can leave behind. He didn't sell out, he didn't give up, but he might have tried to outrun the mirror. And even Keith Richards can't outplay time forever. 3. Axl Rose. Axl didn't get old. He changed shape. The face that once exploded with rage, that snarled through every lyric, became a mystery. One day, the wild, wiry bad boy in a bandana was gone. And in his place stood someone smoother, puffier, tighter. Still Axl. But not quite. He never confirmed anything. No surgeries, no Botox, nothing on record. But his face did the talking. The hard edges softened. The skin got shiny. And the man who used to scowl with every muscle started looking frozen in time, except time never moved like this. People noticed. Loudly. Fans wondered what happened to the fire, the rebel, the look that could cut. What they got instead was a man who looked like he was wearing a version of his old self, like someone hit pause and forgot to press play again. He still had the voice, the energy, but watching him was different. His expressions didn't land the same. His presence felt padded, like something powerful had been sealed behind glass. No one needed him to stay young, they just needed him to stay real, but real got replaced by whatever those needles and scalpels delivered. Axl didn't burn out. He didn't fade. He melted, slowly, silently. And when he stepped on stage looking like a stranger, fans didn't boo. They mourned, because rock didn't just lose a face, it lost a look that once lit up the world. 4. Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler used to be a walking scream, lips like thunder, eyes like fire, a face made for chaos. But somewhere along the way, that chaos got ironed out. The lips got puffier, the cheeks got fuller, and his whole face stopped moving the way it used to. He never admitted it, not once, but people saw it, they felt it, the way his expressions froze, the way the spark in his face dimmed. It wasn't just aging, it was an alteration. And for a guy who made madness into music, that felt like betrayal. Tyler was the kind of frontman who wore every note on his face, every emotion, every howl. But when the face stops working like that, something gets lost. He still moved, still danced, still singing, but something didn't connect. His cheekbones stood out like sculptures. His skin didn't wrinkle, it stretched. And fans were left wondering what happened to the wild man who once made every concert feel like a storm. He wasn't gone, but he changed, filtered. Plastic surgery doesn't just reshape features, it reshapes memories. And when someone like Tyler starts looking different, it's hard not to grieve a little. Not for the music, but for the madness that used to live in his face. People still cheer, still call him a legend. But deep down, they miss the version of him that aged on his own terms. The version that didn't blink through Botox. The version that screamed with his whole face and didn't need help doing it. 5. Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons used to look untouchable. That hard jaw, that scowl behind the paint. He wasn't just a rock star, he was a monument. But over time, that monument started to soften. His skin got smoother, his face puffed up, and the demon didn't look so demonic anymore. He denied it, every time, said he never touched a thing, but fans saw the difference. His face used to carry history. Now, it looked like it was trying to erase it. Wrinkles gone, cheeks rounded, forehead tight, and something about his stare. It wasn't angry anymore, it was blank. People didn't expect him to stay young. They just wanted him to stay real. But when Gene's face started changing, it felt like watching a mask fall off and another faker one take its place. The guy who used to spit blood now looked like he was afraid to wrinkle. The sad part? He didn't need it. He had a legacy, the sound, the stage presence. But something in him said, not enough. Something whispered that aging couldn't be loud. It had to be hidden. So now, every time he steps out without the paint, fans squint, looking for the old Gene, hoping he's still in there somewhere. But what they get is someone too smooth, too polished, like the edge got filed down. He didn't just tweak his look, he tampered with his myth. And once you do that, even the loudest music can't cover the silence that follows. 6. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy didn't hide it. He didn't pretend. He talked about the surgeries, laughed about the results, called his face a thing that doesn't work anymore. And somehow, that made it worse. Because it meant he knew. He saw what happened. And he still went through with it. The Prince of Darkness used to look like chaos in human form. Wild hair, wide eyes, a face full of stories and scars. But over time, that face started to vanish. The lines smoothed out, the forehead froze, his smile turned stiff, and the fire that used to shoot from his eyes dimmed behind injections and tucks. He joked, sure, but the face that used to scream with every muscle now barely moved. You could still hear Ozzy, still feel the madness. But looking at him felt like looking at a puppet, familiar but not quite real. He didn't need the surgery. His legend was sealed. His voice was still raw, his energy still strange and magnetic. But somewhere along the way, he let the mirror win. He looked in and decided the man staring back wasn't enough. Fans didn't hate him for it, they hurt him, because the face they grew up with, the one that looked like it had fought 100 demons, was gone. In its place, something softer, weirder, quieter. Ozzy didn't just change how he looked, he changed what we saw when we looked at him, and we've been squinting ever since. 7. Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley was the face of glam, the star child, the smile behind the star. But take off the makeup, and fans saw something different. Cheekbones are too high, skin is too smooth. A face that used to light up stadiums started looking stuff under the lights. He didn't talk about it, didn't admit a thing. But the difference was there. The laugh lines were gone, the energy in his eyes a little dulled, and when he smiled now, it didn't quite reach all the way up his face. Paul had always been careful with his image. Kiss wasn't just a band, it was a brand, a machine. And the star child couldn't age, couldn't sag, couldn't look tired. So maybe he fought back. Maybe he tried to freeze the look, but instead he lost the spark. Fans didn't rage, they sighed. Because Paul wasn't just a rock star. He was the heart, the warmth, the one who pulled you in. But now, something was missing. The face moved, but not like it used to. It was quieter, numb. He still sang, still gave the speeches, still pointed to the crowd with that larger-than-life flair. But the magic felt like it had a filter on it, a layer of plastic between him and the audience. Every line on his face had been wiped clean, and in that clean slate, something human disappeared. Plastic surgery didn't ruin Paul Stanley, but it muted him, just enough to notice, just enough to wish he hadn't done it. The star child didn't need a facelift, he just needed to keep being Paul, wrinkles and all. 8. David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth didn't age, he hardened. The party king of Van Halen, the high-kicking tornado with the mile-wide grin, ended up with a face that looked carved instead of lived in. His skin didn't wrinkle. It pulled, tight, shiny, and oddly still. In his prime, his smile could start a riot. It was pure joy, raw and reckless. But somewhere along the way, that smile froze. His lips stopped stretching all the way. His cheeks ballooned just enough to look wrong. And his eyes? They used to gleam. Now they just stared, blank and smooth. He never addressed it, not once. But the difference was hard to ignore. He used to radiate chaos. Now he looked like he was trapped inside his own face, like the real David was still in there, banging on the glass. He still performed, still did the splits, still howled at the classics. But it didn't feel the same, because part of what made him electric was how much of himself he showed. Now, he looked like someone who'd been airbrushed into silence. Fans didn't turn on him, but they missed him. Missed the movement in his face, the cracks, the rawness, the mess. David Lee Roth didn't disappear, he just shrank behind a mask. And the wild man who once ruled the stage, he's still out there. Probably, but now you've got to squint through the shine to see him. 9. Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee was chaos with a drum kit, loud tattoos, louder drums, and a grin that said, "I've seen too much." But look at him now, and that grin doesn't quite land. His face got smoother, tighter. The rough edges sanded down. The wild boy of Motley Crue started looking polished. No official confessions, no sit-down interviews admitting anything. But fans saw the shift, the way his forehead stopped wrinkling, the way his eyebrows sat higher, the way his eyes looked stuck in surprise. Something had changed, something under the skin. Tommy was never supposed to be clean-cut. He was a beautiful mess, and that mess was the brand. But now, he walks on stage and people stare, not at the drums, but at the face. Is that really him? Why does he look so different? He still plays hard, still hits like a beast, still spins the sticks like nothing's changed. But the face behind the kit doesn't move the same, doesn't tell the same stories. It's quieter, slicker, like someone wiped the slate too clean, like the mischief in his eyes got replaced with wax. Maybe it was Botox, maybe a lift, maybe just fear of fading away. But whatever it was, it didn't give him back the past. It just erased some of what made him unforgettable. The rebellion, the bite, the raw nerve that pulsed through every beat, faded like old ink on his arms. Tommy didn't need perfection. He needed truth. And now, fans watch with one eye on the show and one eye on what's missing. Not in the music, but in the man. 10. Vince Neil. Vince Neil didn't hide his touch-ups. He talked about them, laughed about them, said he was just keeping up. But the face that once fronted Motley Crue's madness, it's not the same. Not by miles. It's softer, stiffer. A face that looks like it's trying to remember how to be loud. There were weight swings, party scars, years of wear. And then came the repairs, the lift, the tweak, Botox. Whatever it was, it didn't bring back the fire. It just stretched over what was left, and people saw through it. Photos don't lie. One decade he looked wild. The next, he looked sealed, like plastic wrap over a rock star. The jaw changed shape. The eyes didn't crinkle anymore. His expressions lost their punch. Vince didn't need to say much. The transformation said everything. And fans didn't rage. They grieved. Because the guy who used to roar into the mic with a crooked smile and sweat-stained hair now looked like a frozen version of the past. He still sings, still tours, but when the spotlight hits him, you see it. That smooth, almost unfamiliar mask. It doesn't scream rock and roll. It whispers, "I'm trying to stay." People age. Faces change. But Vince's change didn't feel like growth. It felt like panic, like trying too hard to hold on to something that only ever worked when it was wild, rough, and real. He didn't ruin the music, but he lost the face that matched it. 11. Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx always looked dangerous. Even standing still, he had that stare, dark, sharp, full of stories. But lately, that stare feels hollow. Too smooth, too still. His forehead doesn't move. His face doesn't flinch, like the fire got buried under Botox. He never confirmed it, never stood up and said, "Yeah, I had work done." But fans aren't blind. The man who once snarled into cameras now barely blinks. His eyes are the same, but the rest? It looks like it's been frozen mid-smile. A mask on top of a memory. Nikki wrote the book on rock star survival, lived through overdoses, came back from the dead. But somewhere along the way, he started polishing the wreckage, smoothing it out, making it too perfect. And in doing that, he lost some of the bite. The fans didn't turn, they stayed, but they noticed. The man who built a band out of fire and chaos now looked too neat, too planned, like the danger had been airbrushed away. He didn't need to hide his scars. He wore them better than anyone. But now, they're gone. And without them, the story feels a little less true, a little less earned. Plastic surgery didn't erase Nikki Sixx, but it dulled the edge, the same edge that made him matter. Now people still listen, still cheer, but they look at his face and wonder where the legend went, because legends aren't supposed to blink without wrinkling. 12. Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart had that voice like sandpaper dipped in honey, and a face to match, lined, rugged, full of stories. But the stories started to fade, slowly, subtly. His cheeks filled out, his eyes looked tighter. The man who once sang heartbreak like he invented it began to look like he was hiding the hurt. No announcements, no admissions, just a quiet shift. His skin lost its looseness. His smile lost some shape. And fans leaned in closer, thinking, did he? But he never said that. Just kept singing, kept posing. Let the speculation hang in the air like cigarette smoke. Rod was always cool, effortless, a little messy. But lately, that mess looked manageable, like someone tried to press pause on time, tried to turn a living icon into a portrait, one with glossy edges and softened corners, less soul, more sculpture. People didn't scream about it, but they noticed. The face that once danced through decades of heartbreak started to look a little too neat, a little too silent, like someone turned down the volume on the emotion, smoothed the wrinkles, but also blurred the humanity. He still had the hair, the clothes, the voice, but the expression? It shifted. It tightened. And with it, something about the connection faded. The little moments, the raised brow, the sly grin, the ache behind the eyes, felt rehearsed now, like echoes instead of memories. Rod Stewart didn't vanish. He didn't fall. But he smoothed over the parts that made him relatable. The cracks, the wear, the lived-in magic. Now, when he hits the stage, the sound still stirs something deep. But the face? It makes you wonder. Not what song he'll sing, but what he's trying to hide. 13. Ronnie Wood. Ronnie Wood looked like a rolling stone was supposed to look. Worn in, carved up, cool without trying. His face was a map of late nights, loud guitars, and life lived too fast to care. But somewhere along the way, that map got redrawn, tightened, smoothed out. He didn't make a fuss, didn't admit anything, just started showing up with skin a little too firm and a jawline that looked suspiciously refreshed. Fans didn't need a press release. The photos told the story. The wrinkles that once framed every grin were gone. His face didn't look younger, it looked altered. Ronnie was never about polish. He was all instinct, all grit. So when that grit started to fade from his face, people noticed. Not with anger, with confusion. Because he didn't need to fix anything. He was already perfect in his imperfection. Now, the man who once looked like he'd rolled straight out of a bar and onto the stage looks like he's trying to hold on to something that rock and roll never cared about. Neatness. He still plays, still laughs, still moves like a man half his age. But something in his face stopped matching the sound. The wildness got quiet. Plastic surgery didn't ruin Ronnie Wood, but it put a frame around him, made him look more like a tribute to himself than the real thing. And when rock legends start looking like wax statues, fans start missing the cracks. 14. Bret Michaels. Bret Michaels was the blueprint for glam metal swagger, that bandana, that smirk. The guy looked like a cartoon drawn by a teenager who worshipped guitars and eyeliner. But when the cameras caught up with him in the 2010s, something was off. The bandana was still there, but the face beneath it had changed. His forehead didn't move. His cheeks puffed. The sharp jaw softened into something more rounded, more plastic. He never said what he did, never listed the work, but fans watched him age in reverse, just not in a good way. Bret didn't need the surgery. He already had the myth. He was the front man who never turned down a party or a camera. But somewhere along the line, it stopped being about staying wild and started being about staying young. And that's when the face started slipping. He still hits the stage, still sings the hits. But people aren't just watching the show anymore. They're watching the mask, trying to spot the seams, trying to remember what he used to look like before the world convinced him that aging wasn't allowed. The glam never left, but the grit did. And that's what hurts most. Bret Michaels didn't just change his face. He changed how fans connected to him. Not because he stopped being a rock star, but because he started looking like someone afraid to stop pretending. 15. Billy Idol. Billy Idol didn't age. He just got tighter. His face, once full of punk sneers and snarls, now looked vacuum sealed. His trademark lip curl, still there. But the skin around it, stiff, polished, frozen like a wax figure on display. He never talked about it, never stood in front of a mic, and admitted the knives and needles. But he didn't have to. Fans saw the shift. The face that once screamed rebellion started looking like it was holding back a scream. Too stretched, too quiet. Billy used to wear every fight, every night out, every heartbreak on his face. Now the stories are gone, scrubbed clean. The fire in his eyes still burns, but it flickers behind features that don't quite move right anymore. He still performs like a beast, still owns the stage, but the face doesn't keep up. It stays still while the rest of him rages. And that disconnect? It lands heavy, because Billy wasn't supposed to fade, and he definitely wasn't supposed to freeze. Plastic surgery didn't erase his legacy, but it dimmed it just a little, like someone turned the volume down on what made him real. The lines, the cracks, the chaos, they were part of the sound, part of the look. Now fans squint, trying to find the rebel in the reflection, and he's still there, somewhere. But the skin doesn't tell the story anymore. It just sits there, silent, pretending everything stayed the same. 16. Courtney Love. Courtney Love was never quiet about anything, not her music, not her life, and definitely not her surgery. She was admitted to a nose job, hinted at more, called out the industry for its obsession with beauty, and still walked right into the same trap. She used to look raw, vulnerable, unfiltered, like her face was part of the screen. But after the surgeries, something changed. Her feathers smoothed, her lips plumped, and the edge started to dull. She said she did it out of insecurity, said she hated her old nose. And in those moments of honesty, fans didn't judge, they just hurt her. Because Courtney was never supposed to chase perfection. She was the chaos that called out the lie. But Hollywood whispers are loud, and the pressure to fix what was never broken is brutal. So she gave in, and the result wasn't horror. It was something worse, regret. Regret you could hear in her voice. Regret you could see every time she talked about it. The face that once broke the rules now looked like it had been played by them, and lost. Courtney didn't ruin herself. She got caught in the same storm she tried to scream against. And when the thunder faded, all that was left was a face that didn't match the fight. She's still loud, still brilliant, but the mask doesn't move the way it used to. And that silence? It says more than any song ever could. 17. Sebastian Bach. Sebastian Bach used to look like rock and roll carved into marble. The voice, the hair, the smirk. He was every poster on every teenager's wall in the 80s, but time moved on, and so did his face. Except not in the way you'd expect. He swears he didn't touch it, says it's just clean living, but fans aren't buying it. His forehead stopped wrinkling. His eyes got wider, not older. His skin stretched just enough to look strange, like it was trying to pretend the years hadn't happened. He still sings like a thunderstorm, still talks like he's never heard the word filter. But his face? It looks like it's stuck somewhere between then and now, caught in the middle of denial and injections. People wanted to see him age, really age, because that's what made him real. The fire, the breakdowns, the rise and fall. But instead, they saw a man trying too hard to hold on. Sebastian didn't fall off. He just faded under the pressure to stay pretty. And for a guy who used to scream rebellion into every note, that softening hurt more than any wrong note ever could. Plastic surgery didn't break Sebastian Bach, but it blurred him, just enough. And for fans who loved every scar, every line, every loud mistake, seeing him erase part of that story felt like losing a piece of the music too. 18. Joe Perry. Joe Perry's guitar never lied. Every solo dripped with soul, with pain, with glory. And his face used to match, lean, jagged, lived in. But somewhere along the way, that rock and roll roadmap started getting erased. Bit by bit, wrinkle by wrinkle. He never talked about it, never claimed the scalpel, but his skin started to tighten, His jaw got too perfect. His eyes looked more alert than a 70-year-old's ever should without help. People noticed. They didn't yell. They just stared, wondered where the grit went. Joe was supposed to wear the years like a badge. He earned every line, every scar. He didn't need to rewind the tape. He needed to let it play. But instead, fans started seeing a face that looked too smooth for the stories it told. He still plays like a god, still stands side by side with Tyler, riff for riff. But the man behind the Les Paul looks different, softer, a little less fierce. Plastic surgery didn't silence his guitar, but it dulled the visual punch. The face that used to scream blues now just whispers style. Cool but distant, the fans still show up, still worship the sound. But deep down, they miss the old Joe, the one who looked like every riff had torn him open just a little. Now, it's harder to see the scars, and harder to feel the fire behind the frame. 19. Fer Olvera. Fer Olvera was the voice of heartbreak in Latin rock. His songs bled honesty. His eyes carried sorrow and rebellion. But in recent years, those same eyes started sitting in a face that looked different, not older, just unfamiliar. He didn't say much. No interviews, admitting to anything. But fans saw the difference. The cheeks got fuller, the forehead is smooth. The expressions didn't land like they used to. The face didn't move with the music anymore. It stayed still while his voice soared. Fer wasn't just a singer. He was the pain and the poetry, all wrapped into one. And that came through his face, until the face started hiding, or pretending, or freezing. Plastic surgery isn't rare in the industry, but Fer was never supposed to be like the others. He was the exception, the raw nerve, the man who aged on stage and made it look noble. Now, he looks like someone trying to hold on too tight, and the tighter he holds, the more distant he feels. Not because the voice changed, but because the vessel did. Fans don't hate him for it. They worry. They miss the man who used to stare through the screen and make them feel seen. Now they see someone else, still talented, still powerful, but with a face that tells a different, quieter story, one that's afraid of endings. 20. Toyah Willcox. Toyah Willcox didn't stay quiet about her regrets. She stepped up, told the truth, said she gave in, said she wouldn't do it again. And that honesty hit harder than any confession could. She was electric in the 80s, bright-eyed, sharp-cheeked, wild-haired. And when the pressure came knocking, she opened the door, got the work done. A little here, a little there. Enough to change how she saw herself and how the world saw her. The face didn't collapse. It didn't turn monstrous, but it turned out to be unfamiliar. Her expressions stopped matching her words. The spark didn't connect the same way. And she felt it. You could hear it in her voice when she looked back. She said it came from insecurity, from being told she wasn't enough. And when you hear that long enough, it gets inside you. So she tried to fix it with needles, with cuts, with promises of staying young. But the fix didn't last, and neither did the illusion. Now Toyah stands tall, not because she avoided the knife, but because she faced it, admitted it, and chose to speak up. Most rock stars lie through the mask. She ripped hers off. Plastic surgery didn't destroy Toyah Willcox. The regret almost did, but she turned it into truth. And in a world of silence, that might be the loudest sound she's ever made.